Hello and welcome to another edition of the Little Knowledge Podcast with me, Paul Busby, and with me is, of course, Goff Morgan. Hello, Goff.
Hello, greetings to you all. How nice to see you. Nice to be back. We've had a little bit of a break because we've been working our tiny buns off, and I've got a dicky knee as well now, so I'm endurance vile at the desktop here. So please, sympathy, shower me with your healing vibes. Thank you.
So if you go ow every now and then, we
Yeah.
know why. It's that
No, I'll
dodgy
just I'll
knee.
just do a discreet wince. I just go like that.
Okay. He's just playing for sympathy, I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us. Today is going to be a familiar spot in South Wales. Lots of people have visited it, but oddly, it's quite easy to miss what's at the heart of it, and that's St Fagan's Castle. Because there's so much going on around it these days that the actual castle at the heart of it is sometimes forgotten a little bit. So we're going to talk about that. Now, when I talk about things around it, Goff, when I say St Fagan's to you, I
Yeah.
mean, what does it mean to you? What is there?
Well, me, it is the Rural Life Museum, a Welsh Museum of Rural Life, and it's a huge outdoor museum and a collection of actual buildings of worth and value from all sorts of incredible things, so like the 17th century cockpits for cockfighting, up to a row of tiny little terraced bungalow cottages which they've designed in different periods. There's a pub there. There's a miners' institute which they've rescued. Some of the buildings are functional, a mill that makes bread. So that's the area that I'm familiar with. Now, for much of my time, also it has a big fabric collection as well, and all sorts of displays as you go in, um, because it also collects a lot of other objects, not just buildings. Um, uh, um, but most of the time when we go in there, St Fagan's Castle, the building around which on the estate it's based of, wasn't open to the public. It's only within the past couple of years, if I'm right, Paul, that it's actually open to the public again. Is
Well,
that right?
it's partially open to the public
Partially open
at
to
the
them.
moment. As of time of recording, you can't go upstairs.
Right.
But I talked to someone in work and I said about St. Fagans, and he said, and he's very interested in history. He said, "Oh, I've been to St. Fagans. It's now called, since 2018, the National Museum of History. If you
Oh,
Google it, it's called St. Fagans, the National Museum of
I
History.
didn't know that.
Um, they've rebadged it, Goff. It's still just as good."
Nobody told me, quite frankly.
But he said, "I've been to St. Fagans a lot. I've been to all those wonderful buildings, but I've never been in the castle."
Yeah.
So it's for people like him that we're going to have a little chat about said castle. But and for people like you, Goff, I
Well, yeah,
guess.
no, I have never actually been in there either. So because I haven't got there since it's opened.
Well, St. Fagans is not a million miles away from Cardiff, really, is it? I mean, Fairwater's just here, which might come up later on in the podcast. And
Oh
we
yeah.
have St. Fagans. So here we have it at the turn of the 20th century. So we have the castle here. That's the way into the castle. You can see here, we've got the castle. We've got the
Yeah.
three ponds, which are still there.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got terracing leading down there. So we have the castle. But we've also got interesting things. Not that the castle isn't interesting.
Yeah.
Greenwood, by the way, is the mansion built by a remarkable agent, which I'll talk about later. But if you go out into the park, you have got this. Pulf Arthur.
Oh,
Arthur's Pool.
Arthur's Pool.
So another touch of Arthurian stuff in South Wales.
Yeah.
And also, if you go out here, we have the site of the Battle of St Fagans, the
Oh,
largest battle, some say, to be ever to take place in Wales.
oh, right.
And
That's
because it was owned as an estate, the battlefield is pretty much untampered with. It's amazing how orally things go on because there's still a field near here, which is called Horses Field.
oh,
And it's
right.
called Horses Field because the cavalry were there the night before the Battle of St Fagans in
Oh,
1648,
right.
and the name has stuck.
And
All
that's
that.
Second English Civil War or First English Civil War?
Oh, second,
Second.
1648. Yeah, we'll certainly talk about that because it gave St Fagans, and by St Fagans I mean not just the castle but the village that's around
Yeah.
it. If we want to see how it looks now, oh gosh, there we are. We've got a
Oh,
massive visitor centre.
yeah. Yeah.
and other things there. But the battlefield is still fine,
Yeah.
not tampered with. St Fagan's village has grown quite a bit,
Yeah.
but the
Cool.
castle itself, which you can see here.
Oh, right. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
we'll and you've the
Nice
idea
formal
basically,
garden there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the idea basically, it's well, St Fagan for a start. St Fagan was a saint that isn't greatly worshipped. We believe there's only one St Fagan's church in the world,
Oh,
or certainly the UK. He was sent to Britain by the Pope, allegedly, in about 180. And his job was he was sent to King Lucius, who was a kind of a legendary king, to try to spread Christianity in 180. But one source says, now I don't know how true this is, that St Fagan is actually the patron saint of terrible shoes.
what?
I don't know.
That's a load of cobblers.
Oh, I set it up,
Thank you.
didn't
My
I?
name's Goff Morgan. I'm here all week. Oh,
Unfortunately.
really? But
I
you
don't know why.
often wonder how he must have had terrible shoes. It's one of those, they make incredibly tenuous connections when you get to patrons of saints. He
I
must have
guess,
walked
yeah.
from Rome in a pair of Bads flip-flops. And that's how he became patron saint of people with dodgy footwear.
I mean, there's a story that St Fagan had a church on this bluff overlooking the River Ely. So, and then on that site, around about 1091, a Sir Peter Le Saw built an earth and timber enclosure. Peter Le Saw is where Peterston comes from. And Peterston Castle
I
was
never knew that.
nearby. He kicked out Merrigap Howell, the native lord of the area, and the Le Saws were actually there for about 300 years.
Right.
So when the outsiders become insiders,
Yeah, yeah.
The Saws were there for 300 years until Owain Glyndŵr executed the last Le Saw, and captured Peterston Castle. Didn't seem to do anything to St Fagans. St Fagans at some point must have been a stone castle, because there is part of the medieval curtain wall remaining. So we've got a real
We actually
castle.
see that on the picture there.
Yeah, I'll give you. Yeah, you can see.
I thought so. I saw some
Yeah.
walls there.
Yeah, I'll give you a much better view of that in a second.
Okay.
Eventually, it passed on to the De Ville family, and then a De Ville daughter married a Matthew, so it was into the Matthew family. But what state the castle was in by this point? In 1530s, John Leyland rocked up,
Yeah.
and because he went around, didn't he, looking at things and
Oh, he went
writing down what
everywhere.
he saw.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote, "The castle of St Fagans standeth on a little hill, and a part of it yet standeth." So in the 1530s, it doesn't seem as if there was much
A
left.
part of it yet standeth.
Yet standeth. A part of it yet standeth.
Yeah.
The site was eventually bought by a Dr. John Gibbon, who was a local boy done good. He went away and became a lawyer, became MP for a Wiltshire constituency, and he clearly came back and decided he owned the site, so he was going to build a home. Basically on the footprint of the old St Fagans Castle.
Oh.
So really, St Fagans Castle is a house on top of the footprint of a castle,
Yeah.
with a bit of the old curtain wall.
Yeah.
So in the 1580s, probably around about 1580, Mr. Gibbon produced this. So you can see here, it's this bit is the original. Those bits at the back were added on, and it's in classical E-shaped for Elizabeth.
Oh, right, yeah.
So this is what he built, and we'll have another little better look, and that's how it is today, obviously, with the gardens and the pools down there.
The gardens are
There we are. Oh, the gardens are wonderful. So here we are. This is St Fagans Castle, as you look at it today, pretty much unchanged from how it was when Dr. John Gibbon completed his new house. And you know what the unusual thing about this is, Goff? It's symmetrical. Most Welsh houses were these rambling piles at that time. Think of Kevin Mabley, but it's symmetrical, so it shows it's very advanced for its time.
Yeah.
Very advanced. Not much ornamentation.
No.
People wonder whether John Gibbon had built it or whether his successor built it, one of the Herbert family, but I can guarantee, really, from what we know about the Herberts, if they'd built this, there would be some kind of ornamentation.
Yeah,
Their
particularly.
crest would be somewhere on the porch, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Probably
Uh,
underneath that top window. That's the sort of squarish area that you could almost think they would fit something in.
yeah, it's very simple. So Gibbon is not showing aristocratic pretensions. He was eventually awarded sort of a coat of arms, but he doesn't seem to have used it here at St Fagans. He appears to have built the house, but not really done up inside in his lifetime. So at least not the way we see it now, as will become clear. So he sold it eventually. His son sold. Well, his son John Jr. had married into the Herbert family. So John Jr.'s brother-in-law Nicholas Herbert bought it from him. Now Nicholas Herbert had married Catherine, the widow of Miles Herbert. So he didn't just live here; he also had this building in Newport, Crinder.
Oh, how interesting. I know of Miles Herbert.
Yeah,
He was easily the worst mayor of Newport that had ever existed.
and that's up against some pretty
And that's
stiff
good, yeah.
competition.
He was Reeve at the time because the term mayor didn't exist. And he just seemed to think that the funds that were provided for the town of Newport were exclusively his to have a go at, you see. And he was only supposed to be elected for a year, but he wound up being elected 3 years in a row, basically because he filled the room with his followers who were just going to beat up anybody else who decided to vote against him. The town bridge in Newport just repeatedly fell down. It was like it was made out of twigs and fluff, apparently. And whenever you got a major flood tide after a storm, down went the bridge. And of course, it would take years to put it back up, and the town would go bankrupt while they weren't doing it. So all the worthies of Newport, including John Morgan of Tredegar, they set up the bridge fund, and they all put money into the bridge fund for the next time the bridge fell down, we can get another one up a bit quicker, right? So sure enough, the bridge fell down. They go, the bridge fund. And when he discovered that Miles Herbert had spent it all on hats or something like that, some nice fripperies for the Reeves office. Yeah, so he did finally fall from grace after the unpleasantness there.
Well, and
No,
his
but
widow.
I didn't realise he lived at Crinder.
And his widow was Catherine, who
Yeah.
was married by Nicholas Herbert of St Fagans and Crinder. And you'll be pleased to know Nicholas Herbert was equally disreputable, keeping up the Crinder tradition of disreputable owners at that time. I'm sure there are those that own it are extremely nice these days.
Yeah.
He was accused, he was Sheriff of Monmouthshire. It didn't stop him being accused of helping pirates. He was fined £200, and in 1589, and this was actually a little battle with the Bassets of Beaupre. We have a podcast on the Bassets of Beaupre. He was embroiled in riots, routs, and quarrels.
This is half of the course. This is what they did. Like I said, these aristocrats and landowners, they weren't what we think of as sort of, the Victorian and Edwardian aristocrats and landowners. These were gangland bosses. I've said this time again, these were gangland bosses. They had their own territories, their own followers, and you just attacked each other. Law, it was a very tenuous thing, particularly as the people doing most of the rioting were the JPs.
Yes. Well, Herberts didn't actually own St Fagans for very long because Nicholas's son William, when he took over, he had to sell it because he was funding one of his crazy schemes. So he sold St Fagans to get the cash to help fund Walter Raleigh's search for El Dorado in Guyana.
Worked out well.
So there's Walter Raleigh. Yeah, he'd been there. Raleigh had been there twice, but he sold. William Herbert sold St Fagans and put £1,200 into this venture.
Oh, God.
They headed off to Guyana looking for the city of gold.
Yeah.
So St Fagans was sold for, they hoped,
the
city of gold.
El Dorado, yeah.
It didn't quite work out that way. I mean, James I repeatedly told Walter Raleigh, please, don't attack the Spanish. Whatever you do, don't attack the Spanish. And they just attacked the Spanish. Causing all kinds of political problems for James I.
Yeah.
Now, so when he came back, Walter Raleigh was arrested by James I. And Raleigh says of Herbert that he was a valiant and honest gentleman of singular courage. And Herbert straight away betrayed Raleigh and turned king's evidence. Raleigh was under house arrest, and he had a plot to escape from house arrest.
Yeah.
And William Herbert immediately told the authorities.
Oh, God.
Tragic thing is that Walter Raleigh, I don't think ever found out that it was William Herbert that dobbed him in.
Oh, that is appalling.
We last hear of William Herbert when he had this elaborate scheme to export Welsh butter by sea, which didn't go that well.
Oh.
And he's last heard of in Southwark prison for debt by 1620, and he's dead by 1628. So there we are, the Herberts again, ladies and gentlemen. Now, so who did he sell? Who did the Herberts sell St Fagans to?
Yep.
This new house. Well, they sold it to Lewis of the Van Mansion in Caerphilly.
Yeah.
The Lewis family, an old Welsh family, and there's the van. It's still there to this day. Not symmetrical, as you can see.
No.
But there it is. It would have been colour washed, as they call it, or whitewashed, like St Fagans is today at one time of its history. But there it is, as it is today. We've got another little view of the van here. The van might be familiar to you, Goff, because this is the ancestral home of a lady we talked about in some detail because of her illness, and that was Lady Elizabeth Dayrell at Tredegar House.
Yes, that's right.
Her ancestral home is Lewis of the Van, so the family originated from here.
Oh, right. Ah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Now, the Van Mansion itself was built because a lot of the material was pilfered from Caerphilly Castle. And this sort of cannibalism of previous historic buildings to build new ones is something you see time and time again all around the country in Europe, really, isn't it?
Well, it made sense at the time, if you think about it, because you had derelict buildings, and you didn't want to. Why go to quarries when you could just use the stone that had already been quarried and recycle it? So they essentially we should think it's an admirable process now, recycling a castle into a large house.
Well, absolutely right. And it's the Lewises, Edward Lewis, when he took over. Unfortunately, when they got their new shiny house, St Fagans, they let the van go to rack and ruin.
Oh, God.
Aristocrats sometimes do that, don't they? They've got a new shiny thing. We'll just let the older one just rot. Yeah. It didn't quite rot, but it was let to go a bit to rack and ruin. But they did the interiors we see today at St Fagans Castle. The Lewises did.
Oh, right.
In the 1620s.
Right.
So when you go into what is the drawing room now, all very nice. The carved overmantel here are the arms of Lewis.
Yeah.
So we can see them here. They're the Lewis coat of arms, which are quite elaborate. We've also got the hall. It's interesting, actually, St Fagans Castle, because it has a very medieval sort of the way it works. You walk into a cross passage.
Oh.
What I mean to that is to the right are the family rooms, to the left are the kitchens and the servants' rooms.
Oh, yeah, that's very old-fashioned, isn't it?
So it is Elizabethan, but it still harks back to that medieval time. And that sort of layout hasn't been changed greatly. This is when you walk in and turn to the right. You find yourself in what is called the hall.
Yeah.
Up here, however, is a confection, because these are not the arms of the Lewis family. They are the arms of the Windsor family, the Earls of Plymouth, who later took over the estate. They're probably a Victorian confection, but they can be no earlier than 1730s. That's when the Windsors took over. And their motto, by the way, I'm not sure how many aristocratic families actually agree with this, is basically, what avails pedigrees? So, pedigrees, what do they matter?
The guy, he's got a huge pedigree on the wall.
Huge
pedigrees don't matter.
Yeah.
Bit of double think going on there, I feel, don't you?
That is that what is now termed the humble brag?
Humble brag, yeah.
Oh, what does a pedigree matter? Look at my enormous pedigree. Yeah, I think it might well be an 18th or 19th century version of that.
Yeah.
The other thing the Lewises left behind is this, which is a cistern, which is still there. So it's a lead vessel for holding water.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very elaborately carved. And it's a great piece of lead work. The date on it is 1620. It has the Lewis coat of arms. It also has the Stuart coat of arms of the king on it as well, for some reason. Now, some people say originally it might have been the base of a fountain. That's what an expert in cisterns said, but I don't know
Got
about
no
that.
idea. It
I'm not an
doesn't.
expert on
It looks
cisterns.
too deep for a fountain, somehow, doesn't it?
I honestly couldn't comment. It is
No, I
way
really
out of
don't
my
know, but it
field.
does look. It looks very. That it's got to be what, 3.5, 4 foot?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know, but what I do know is when it comes to lead cisterns,
Yeah.
this is seen as is very very highly regarded,
Oh,
and it's still in front of St Fagan's Castle as it
yeah,
has been for, we assume, fountain or no fountain
yeah.
since the Lewis era of the
Have you
1620s.
have you noticed as well in a little quirk on it? You see where you have the coat of arms? Yeah.
Yeah.
Immediately to the left of the
Oh
coat
yeah,
of
the
arms, one of the
mistake.
panels is upside
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also a famous St Fagan's mistake. Yeah, a panel's upside down, so it's well
Yeah,
regarded, but there is an error.
yeah, yeah,
Unless for some obscure reason the error was made deliberately for something that is lost to
yeah.
lost to
You
history,
possibly, yeah, possibly.
making some point which is long gone. But there we are. Now, 17th century, Civil War, we mentioned. And here is a field.
Hurrah!
It
That's
is
like
not
a
any old
field.
field, obviously. This is the battlefield of the Battle of St Fagans
Ah,
of May of 1648. And essentially, and this is interesting actually, Sir Nicholas Kemmis of Kevin Mabley, friend to this channel, the great hero who was involved in this second sort of royalist rising against Cromwell in 1648. He took, if you remember, Chepstow Castle and was killed there.
yeah.
Um, but this actually may well have started in an argument over pay. The parliamentarians hadn't paid troops properly, so they rose up.
All right.
But it ended up with the royalists aiming for Cardiff Castle and charging through here, and Cromwell was on his way, so the parliamentarians had to hold them up. And of course,
Yeah,
the royalists thought, well, we better attack now before Cromwell turns up, otherwise we're in big trouble.
yeah.
So they choose to attack in May 1648 here, the Battle of St Fagans, where 11,000 people took part. But it
Good
was a bit
Lord.
of a mismatch, because even though the royalists have bigger numbers, the royalists basically had a lot of them had clubs and billy hooks, whereas this armored might of a professional parliamentarian roundhead army
Yeah,
outclassed them
new
so
model.
much. And here's a reenactment of it.
Oh, hey, cool.
I got this from a site called JJ's War Games,
Yeah,
and he tells me he was a witness to this reenactment of the Battle of St Fagans. Huge parliamentarian victory, obviously.
yeah,
We say obviously, but that was sort of the last, a huge victory.
yeah.
They won before Cromwell could turn up. But this is actually done by the English Civil War Society, this reenactment, and JJ actually says that they're the arch enemies of the sealed knot.
Ah, ha, ha.
Now, what I think they should do, the English Civil War Society and the sealed knot should actually settle their differences on the battlefield, and
Yeah,
then in several centuries, someone can reenact it.
yeah, indeed, yeah. Sort it out, boys. Sort it out.
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
Yeah.
But on a sadder note, there were quite a few of the village of St Fagans that took part in this battle on the royalist side, and it said that after the battle there were 65 widows in the village of St Fagans alone.
Oh gosh.
Then you've got the dramatic, which obviously is probably not literal, but it does show what a disaster it was for one side. That the River Ely ran red with blood. You hear that quite a lot at the end of a battle. But it is true. In fact, the women of the village basically had to do the harvest the next year
Oh
because there was a
yeah.
bit like the First World War. There was a complete lack of manpower
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the battle. So it was a terrible battle. But the Battle of St Fagans, yes, it could well be the biggest battle in Wales
Yeah.
as far as numbers is concerned.
Yeah.
It was the last
11,000.
gasp of the royalists in the, as you rightly put it, Goff, the Second Civil War. Lewis's were royalists as well. But again, St Fagan's Castle itself, because it's a house, not a castle, you can't defend it anymore in this age, can you, in the 17th century? You still have bits of the curtain wall you can see, which parts of it were medieval, but it is, of course, a house rather than a castle. So
Yes.
what will happen to it? Well, a Lewis in the 1730s, Elizabeth Lewis, married the third Earl of Plymouth. And we know what that means. The Earls of Plymouth take over the castle,
Yeah. Right.
take over the estate. and they proceeded to immediately neglect it.
Sake.
They did a van on it. They did a van on it.
Yeah.
I mean, really neglect it. Because they had a far bigger thing. Their estate stretched around about 40,000 acres, and it was Worcestershire and Flintshire and Shropshire. The Glamorgan estates, which was about 17,000 acres at that time, 1730s, before the great industrial, boom, the Industrial Revolution. The Glamorgan estates weren't the great thing for the Plymouth estate.
Yeah.
So why go to St Fagans, this not overly massive Elizabethan mansion, when you've got your own big place, in Worcestershire?
That's right, yeah.
So they didn't. They basically left it to go to, again, it's that word again, rack and ruin.
Yeah.
A tenant farmer was around for a while there.
Yeah.
At one point, it was a school.
Oh.
In the early 19th century, they took one room of the school as a local schoolroom. And the local vicar called Dr. Isle, I think his name was, basically had the gardens, and he had all these hothouses, and there was a huge hailstorm and smashed them all up.
Oh, gosh, never.
Yeah. So it's kind of unloved, really.
It's sad, isn't it?
It happens. Like we said, it happened to the Van mansion. It happens, doesn't it, when they get shiny new things? But finally, in 1834, for the first time in 40 years, a member of the Windsor family turned up.
Oh, right.
First time in 40 years. And it was a woman, and a very important woman to the history. This is Lady Harriet Clive. Lady Harriet Windsor, as was. She'd married the Honourable Robert Clive, who was the grandson of Clive of India. And he was actually the son of the Earl of Powys. So they turn up for the first time in 40 years to see what's here. And actually, the local doctor, vicar, shows them around, and you can tell that he really doesn't want to. He's the most reluctant tour guide in history. Absolute misery of a man that doesn't really want to show them around this place. In case they like it too much.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. He's going to lose the greenhouses, isn't he?
And decide to muscle in, which of course is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Exactly what happens. Lady Harriet Clive is an interesting lady. The Plymouth earldom dies out around about this time. And the other title they have of Viscount Windsor is in abeyance. So Harriet manages to get it out of abeyance, and she becomes the 13th Baroness Windsor. And she basically ends up taking over the whole estate.
Oh, right.
And a huge estate. And she changes her name to Lady Harriet Windsor-Clive. So she's installed the Windsor thing back, and she carries on with her husband. And she plays a massive part in the history of the area. I mean, you mentioned, by the way, there was a pub, which I think closed only a few years ago, like so many pubs, called the Baroness Windsor, one of the oldest pubs in the Penarth area.
Oh, interesting.
Because she was very big with Penarth and Grangetown, and she was the mastermind behind the development of Penarth Dock. You mentioned Penarth and a little chat before we started.
Yeah.
Lady Harriet was something of the godmother of Penarth, you could call her.
Oh, gosh.
She wanted to put up a bit of a challenge to the Marquis of Bute and his Cardiff Dock, so Penarth Dock started, and pretty soon it was transporting 900,000 tons of coal a year.
Well.
Great success for Baroness Windsor, Lady Harriet Windsor-Clive. And also, she paid for national schools. She was a great philanthropist. Didn't live at the castle much, because she had her place in Worcestershire, but she did spend a lot more time at St Fagans than her immediate ancestors ever did. And near Aberdare, she paid for the building of a church of St Fagans.
Oh.
And within 2 years, it had burnt down. So she paid for another church of St Fagans at Aberdare, and it's still there.
Oh, right.
But it certainly did hit her pocketbook, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So now you've got Windsor-Clives, as they were known. Lord Windsors are now living, often during the summer, at St Fagans Castle. So, obviously, needs a bit of restoration.
Yeah.
Because what she wants is for her son and his bride to live there. It was going to be a present for them, which is very kind of her.
Yeah.
But it needed a bit of restoration, obviously. And so they did bits, not just her, but in the late 19th century. So what we've got here, the terraces were worked on.
Yeah.
And this bit, which looks old, is actually the most modern bit.
Oh, how peculiar.
So they've added a dining room had to be added. A
Yeah.
servants' hall is in this area. They put a watchtower at the end of this wall, which again is pure Victorian confection, nothing to do with the
Oh,
medieval period at all. And stewards' rooms and laundry buildings and things like that were added. The dining room was important because they didn't have enough room in the castle. But an historian called Bethan Scory, who really is the authority on the architectural history of St Fagans, puts it very interesting. You got Gibbon, who just builds a house. And he's not pretending it's a castle, really, is he?
no.
Way back in 1580.
Yeah.
You've got Baroness Windsor and the future Windsor-Clives who are trying to turn it back into a romantic castle. Because look, they built a turret.
But yeah, yes. Yeah.
It's a
fun,
curious
isn't it?
little thing.
Yeah. Because
The
again,
inside,
you look at that and you think that would be a remainder from the old castle, would you? But it's not.
yeah, it's not. It's a late 19th
Yeah.
century Windsor-Clive sort of thing. But again, there was still some of the curtain wall is the original medieval wall. Some of it.
Yeah.
But inside needed a bit of change. So they put this staircase in. This is 19th century. Very splendid staircase was put in. Oh, and upstairs is interesting because it still maintains how it looked, I think, in the 1580s. Because when you get up the staircase, you look into this corridor, but when you spin it round, it's quite clear that it was the long gallery of the Elizabethan house.
Ah, right. Yeah.
You think? Because it stretches right the length of the house.
Yeah.
And this little door here was a servants only door. So the servants backstairs can pop
Yeah.
up there and they can do whatever it is they need to do at the time.
Yeah.
Now, although Baroness Windsor, Harriet, of Windsor-Clive, wanted her son to take over, and he did, and they did spend some time at St Fagans as their home, he promptly, sadly, dropped dead at 35.
Oh, gosh.
So his widow, Lady Mary, who did a lot of work here and with the gardens, continued until their son, Baroness Windsor's grandson, was old enough to take over. So this means when it's a minor, you've got a bit of a wait, haven't you? You've got a vacuum.
Yeah.
So the women took that vacuum and basically ran the place.
Oh, good. Cool.
And did an extremely good job. This is very much, St Fagans, when you look at it, is a very much, especially the 19th century, it's very much female powered.
Oh, interesting.
Which in the era was not necessarily always the case. They always seem to have strong women live in here. But you can only do so much yourself, right? You need a good agent. For a big estate, you need a good agent. Yeah. We've seen good agents. We've seen bad agents on this podcast, Goff, haven't we?
Right, yes. Yeah.
I don't like to name names. Prothero. But can you build up wealth? Can you do a great job as an agent of a great estate? And can you do it honestly? Which the agent of Kevin Mabley in the 18th century didn't, and the agent of Tredegar didn't in the first half of the 19th century. Well, this man, William Forrest, a Scotsman who came, again, at quite a young age to South Wales, proved that maybe you could, you know. And he did. He was an extremely good agent of the estate. He took over 17,000 acres of Lord Windsor as a minor, his estate. He bought Barry Island for the Plymouth estate.
Oh, gosh.
Which was very handy.
Yeah.
When there were floods, he paid for a boat to rescue people, rescue the villagers, and then made sure they were all safe, and then made sure they were given cash and coal and things like that to help them out. So it's not like Prothero, is it?
No, right, no.
Mr. Forrest. A lot of this comes from an excellent journal article by Dr. Linnard called Lord Forrest, because of the power that this man managed to amass. I mean, he was a director of a dozen companies.
A lot of the major land agents got in those sort of positions, didn't they?
Yeah,
because they also seemed that they were useful figures to have on boards because of their connection with the landowner they represented.
Absolutely right. I mean, he was on the board of the Barry Dock and Railway Company, the Cambrian Collieries, the Vale of Glamorgan Railway Company, but also the Western Mail newspaper and the Western Supermare Pier Company. Which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
But he worked because he was so good. He worked, and it's interesting, Goff. We've said this many a time on this podcast. For the networking, I think it's interesting that he hunted with the Glamorgan Hunt.
Yes.
Which again would have helped, right?
Well, of course, yeah. That's the way you got into society. because that was how the county entertained themselves. It's a very, very close knit community of these well off landowners. So as well as stitching up all the civil power, they basically just associated with themselves.
Yeah.
So it was very nepotic, and it was very, nods and favors and right sort of person type job. And if you got involved in if you could ride with the hunt, huge step up in opportunity.
which which Robert Forrest clearly did,
Yeah.
because other estates wanted him to work for him as well. He also got involved in estate and building valuation all over Britain, so the money's pouring in. But this is a very talented, immensely hard-working man, but as far as we can see, honest with it,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah.
He worked for local estates like Lord Romilly's estate, the Ham estate, the Lantwick Major, Mrs. Jenner of Wenvoe Castle, which we've talked about, Wenvoe
Oh, yeah.
Castle. And pretty soon he was in charge of 70,000 acres. It's a lot for one man,
Yeah.
but he did a very good job. But he became this lordly character.
Yeah.
He became it. He didn't live at St Fagan's Castle like the Troy house agent did.
Yeah.
Another great agent who spent most of his time trying to make sure that his master's ancestors didn't have their graves robbed, if you remember, at
Yes.
Troy.
Yes.
Yeah, Goff did a great bit on that. So do watch Troy House if you haven't heard that story about that agent. Goff did a great bit on that, if I say so myself.
God bless you.
So the manor born this because Forrest had his suits made at St James's, his boots were made in Jermyn Street. He ordered them to make his left heel of every boot 1/8 of an inch lower than the right to even out a slight limp he had.
Oh,
He was a
God.
big fan, obviously looking at this picture with mixed success, of patent medicine for baldness.
Yeah, he's not a good hand, unless that's the before picture. We haven't got
Oh, the after one. The after one, he looks like Leo Sayer. Yeah. He had his own house, which was almost a mansion, which has now been knocked down, sadly, at St Fagans, called Greenwood, where it was far more modern than St Fagans Castle. He had monogrammed glass and linen, and at Greenwood he had a Turkish bath.
Roof.
He sent for London for his coffee. His wine came from Bath, and his fish came from Grimsby under special arrangement by rail. He's Robert Forrest. What a man. Again, there's this vacuum, right? And he's filling it. There is no Lord Windsor, really. I mean, he's getting older now, Lord Windsor, Robert Windsor-Clive. But his Scottish roots were never forgotten because he put in, and you can still see the site in the woodland, a curling rink.
Oh, right. Gosh.
Very good curler. We in Britain are usually very interested in curling, usually when some Scottish women win a gold at the Olympics.
Winter Olympics. Yeah, that's the time it features most above our radar. Yeah.
Then we all pretend we know about curling, but Robert Forrest genuinely did. And it worked. You're right, Goff. He did enter society. He became a JP, and extraordinarily, he became Deputy Lieutenant of Glamorgan. This is an agent.
That's
Who was the Lieutenant of Glamorgan? Well, his young master, Lord Windsor, of course.
Yeah.
So, well done, Robert Forrest. He did want it to become a dynasty like at Troy House.
Yeah.
But his nephew and his nephew's son both took over as agent on the death of Robert Forrest, but they both died very young.
Oh, it's a shame.
So it wasn't quite the dynasty that he thought.
No.
Meanwhile, the young master, Robert Windsor-Clive, Lord Windsor himself, is getting older. And he needs a larger staff. And here we have the staff at St Fagans Castle, including what I like to think is the tallest man in the world.
The tallest footman in Wales. Look at him. 8 foot.
He can't even get in. I can't. All right, he's standing on something, obviously.
Got it.
And a lot of these are probably travelling staff as well, rather than the full-time house staff of a building, which really isn't big enough to need an inside staff of that size. They had their own place in Worcestershire, great fun, which I'll talk about in a little while, called Hewell Grange. That was the grand seat. Yeah. And this was sort of the place you go in the summer. Clive family. But we're looking at staff, Goff, and staff didn't necessarily at St Fagans have a happy ending, did they?
We have a murder, as always. It's a boggler. Very, very complicated little bit of set of affairs. Let me just call up some of my notes for you. Yeah, this is again all from the usual places. We're looking at the 18th of July, 1896. Awful tragedy near Cardiff. Man shot dead at Fairwater. A cold-blooded deed, the police interviewed. So, again, yeah, we seem to have an awful lot of these situations. Shortly after 10 p.m. on Friday, the city of Llandaff and village of Ely were thrown into the state of wildest excitement at the news that a man had been shot dead on the main road from Cardiff to St Fagans, his body having been found lying on the footpath about 200 yards on the St Fagans side of the crossroads at Fairwater.
Sorry, what was this date again?
18th of July, 1896.
Thanks. Sorry, I missed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Goff.
It's okay. Shortly before 10 o'clock on Friday evening, two men, one named David Thomas, a carpenter in the employ of Lord Windsor at St Fagans, but formerly in the employment of Mr. Clark, stonecutter and builder, and another named Augustus, living at Penapeel Road, Canton, were seen sitting by side on the wall under the trees by the four crossroads at Fairwater. About 10 o'clock, the men parted, and Augustus walked off towards his home at Canton, whilst Thomas pursued his way in the opposite direction along the road to St Fagans. A few minutes after, the report of a gun or pistol shot was heard, followed after an interval of a few seconds by a shriek, which was immediately succeeded by a pistol shot. These sounds were heard by several persons living near at hand. John Hook, coachman to Mr. Cartwright, who was standing on one side of the road a couple of field lengths off, at once ran down the highway to the crossroads and listened. He was followed by two lads named Thomas and Griffiths, and the three set off along the St Fagans road from which direction the sound appeared to have come. 100 yards down the road, they met a man of medium height, dressed in dark clothes, and looking, as Hook said, something like a midshipman. Actually, he didn't. He said he looked like a middy, which is a lovely phrase, slang term for midshipman. And with a cap on that had something in the nature of a bright leather band that glittered. Hook said good night as was passing, and the man mumbled something and held up his right hand, his left being concealed under his pilot coat, as though he were hiding something there. Hook and the two lads pursued their way for about 100 yards further down the road, and there discovered the body of a man lying right across the pathway. Hook took hold of the man's foot and said to the boys, "This is what we must have heard." The body was lying on its chest with the arms crossed under the head, and they could see the blood oozing out from a hole in the clothes near the left shoulder blade. As is the sensitivity of the time, they then go into an absolutely gruesome details about the blood on the holes and the various things. But after, and we'll skip that over. But Hook and the two boys hurried off to Ely to summon the police, and being unable to find PC Lane, Hook set off with the boys to Llandaff. In the meantime, Hook and the other boy returned to the body, which by this time was the centre of eager and awestruck throng of villagers. This always happens at this period. Some hideous murder will take place, and people just flood in, as if they're going to a sideshow. So again, the crime scene, no maintained at all in the way we would do it today. So among the crowd that had gathered was a young fellow named Ashley, son of Mr. Ashley, a builder of Ely, and he identified the body as that of David Thomas, a carpenter, and formerly lived at Penapeel Road, Canton, who during the past month had resided at St Fagans. Ashley said that if the man he thought it was, he would probably have his trade union tickets upon him. Search was made and the tickets in question were found, thus establishing his identity without a doubt. The body was subsequently removed to Llandaff police station, where it lies awaiting the inquest, which will be held this afternoon. And what interesting little bit there, they take it off to the police station. Normally, from our experience, as soon as you find a body, they take it to the nearest pub.
Oh, yeah.
They did in the cellar, but they haven't. It's gone off to the police station on this occasion. Now, this is an absolutely astonishing little piece of a case, because they go into such minute detail and a minute description of the area and a minute breakdown, even into the names of the people that live in the houses down either side of the road, where they were located, how they were set up. But really, if you had a pen and paper, you could draw a map of this area from the description that was gathered. They also go into minute and gruesome detail about the blood stains on the floor, how it could have been occurred where it was dripping, when it was a terrible thing. But the big thing that is the biggest puzzle about this case altogether is that there is no motive. Nobody can discern why the chap was killed. Nobody can say why Thomas was killed. There's no indication to it whatsoever. So they're scrabbling around desperately to try and find connections that might have actually been done. The only suspect they have is this description, as we stated before, that as Hook and his companions were running up the road within 100 yards of the spot where the murdered man's body was found, they met a man walking leisurely along the footway with his left hand concealed under his pilot jacket. Everything would point to the fact that this man was the murderer. Granted that a man who has just committed a crime had heard footsteps approaching, he would do everything in his power to conceal any appearance of guilt. The man passed on the road by Hook walking leisurely. When spoken to, he took good heed that none should have a chance to see his face. Oops, up at the top of the page. None should have a chance to see his face. And he walked with his head towards the ground to prevent his features being recognised. Moreover, he had, as we stated, his left hand concealed under a pilot jacket. Had he thrown away his revolver away after committing the tragedy, he would have left a possible clue to the identification. And so, preferring to conceal it on his person, he transferred it to his left hand, which he slipped under his coat. There is no evidence for that statement whatsoever. Whatsoever. There is no idea, nothing. There's nothing to say. This is just pure speculation on behalf of the papers. But what is very fascinating is, again, like a lot of these cases, what is supposed in later items becomes treated as a fact. Yeah. So this pistol, which was never found, will crop up again at some point. Now they don't know why it was done. They say don't think it could be done for money, because obviously he wasn't a rich man. But people start to see people in peaked hats everywhere, because it is literally the only thing you could possibly know about what's going on here. They know that the shot that killed him was fired quite close. Again, if you want to indulge in as much speculation as they did, you could draw all sorts of conclusions from that. But the simple fact is you don't know. And then we have the tuppence. They make much of the tuppence. All he had upon him when he left the pub was tuppence. And people remember being told, and when the body was examined, no tuppence. Therefore, the person that shot him took the tuppence. I don't know what that means, but they go on and on about this tuppence disappearing. One of the possible suggestions that he was shot as a robbery to attempt to get money off him, and of course they didn't have anything on him. All he actually did have was tuppence on him, 2 pennies. With great sentimentality, the paper then concludes its report with breaking news to Mrs. Thomas, a pathetic scene. It should be mentioned here that the man Thomas, who met at such untimely end on Friday evening, leaves a widow and 2 children to mourn his loss. She goes to the police station, was shown to the police station there. She was informed of the terrible end that her husband had come to. Of course, the poor woman was prostrated with the ghastly tidings, and for a time seemed completely overwhelmed. Later in the day, she had assisted to her home at St Fagan's, where, and indeed throughout the district, the very greatest sympathy is expressed with her in her deep trial. Apart from the pack, 2 columns earlier, they just get a detailed blow-by-blow recreation of the last minutes of her husband staggering up the road, bleeding everywhere and coughing up blood. Oh, the double standard of these papers is absolutely astonishing. Well, of course, it doesn't just end there, because they don't know what is going on. So they just completely start to panic, because they just don't know why it was done. All sorts of anybody who sees anything peculiar is suddenly in the paper for it. Oh, I saw a man walking down the road. Oh, woman sees man walking down the road. It just so they snatch at any idea they can get, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things take place. The theory starts to spread. As there was no murder, no motive for the murder, It must have been a madman. And the madman had just broken out of Bridgend Asylum and was heading to well, somebody had escaped from Bridgend Asylum. She had absolutely nothing to do with it. The chap they did eventually caught him, and he was only a little bloke. He wasn't remotely like the physical chap. The guy was about 5'8". He was a little bloke dressed completely in the wrong clothing, nothing to do with it. Just convinced that Irish people were feeding him chloroform and aniseed to make him think he was mad.
Oh.
So he goes back in. They take him back in. So obviously it's asylum. Then they go for that old standby of the press and the papers at the time. A foreigner. It had to be a foreigner, right? So it's the Greek arrests at Newport, the Greek. Well, they round up all the usual suspects and then let them all go. That's the first thing they do because they haven't got any evidence for anything. But then the Inspector Kappa of the Monmouthshire Police, they're investigating Marshfield, where there have been reports of people heading back through St Mellons at odd hours and all sorts of things like this. And they discover this chap walking up the railway line towards Newport. And he said that he was stopped and found that the man was a foreigner and unable, apparently, to speak English. The man was taken to Newport and detained by the county police station. He appeared to be about 28 years of age with a dark moustache and was wearing a cap with a shining peak. Nothing was found in his possession, and the only word he could understand was Cardiff.
Oh.
The Cardiff police were communicated with, and as a result, the Greek was, after 2 hours detention, liberated. Inspector Townsend of the Glamorgan County Constabulary at Cardiff, who was seen respecting the above-mentioned arrest, said that on receipt of a telephonic communication from Newport giving a description of the man who the police had in custody, he sent back a reply to the Glamorgan that the Glamorgan police would take no action in the detention of the man, as he had received previous information about the same man from a private source at Risca, and his description did not at all agree with that which the inspector wanted. The man had been arrested he was about 5'4" high, 25 years of age, and dressed in a dirty dark brown striped suit. He wore a peak cap, bearing inside the name of a maker at Sharpness. The inspector was of the opinion that he had been discharged by the Newport police as soon as was possible, and probably had been given a ticket for the casual ward at the borough workhouse because he might have been itinerant. Next thing, he's arrested again. So they arrest this Greek chap again then. The Greek, Chavas Davaljon, has been rearrested because he was seen walking out the Great Western Railway towards Llanwern. So basically, this chap is just, the only word he knows is Cardiff. He's trying to get to Cardiff. The only way he can think of getting to Cardiff is to walk along the railway lines. And eventually he goes 180 degrees in the opposite direction. They arrest him at Llanwern. It's like, so that's no very good. Then we get the theories which come up about the scream between the shots. Because, again, the screams, people are saying, oh, that scream, it wasn't the scream of a man, you know. It was a scream of a woman. Now, two people, Mr. Bowman and Miss Mitchell, claimed that they'd overheard a man and a woman talking about the murder over a stile as they were going past. So they immediately mash this together, saying, it must be the woman that Mr. Bowman and Mr. Mitchell heard talking about the murder on the way home. Well, I mean, there's no evidence for this at all. If such a woman were present, she might have craved to have her own life spared, or she may have been horrified to see the murderer rush after Thomas after firing the first shot into his back, and then screamed on reflecting upon his callous determination. That's just fantasy. It's just
Might
fiction.
Is doing a lot of heavy lifting there,
Fiction.
isn't it?
It's just fiction. There is absolutely nothing there. So this story does just rumble on. People do get involved. The people start writing in to talk about it. They talk, again, the tuppence comes up again.
So what conclusions do they come to? What you said that there's no motive. So what do people think happened?
Well, one is murder, and he was after the money. And you get this wonderful, how the murderer, like a tiger, was watching for anyone to suit his purpose that might happen to come his way. So basically somebody waiting in a hedge to waylay someone for cash. That is a possibility. It is a possibility. Or the other thing, it is a premeditated crime. They still insisted it was done deliberately. Well, no any real evidence for that because there's no connection to the man or the murder or anything. You don't know. But it's a wonderful thing about here, about when everybody writes in who really lays into the lunatic from Bridgend thing, who said it is to be hoped that the police have something more tangible to work upon than the idea that a lunatic who escaped from Bridgend committed the deed. The man seen walking away from the scene of the murder immediately after the firing of the shots was dressed as a ship's officer or engineer. Mrs. Woodward, wife of the former chief reporter of the Western Mail, saw such a man loitering about the spot 2 hours earlier. Now, newly escaped lunatics do not dress like ship's officers, and their equipment as intimates of an asylum does not include a Derringer revolver with cartridges to match, nor could these have been stolen without someone missing them. The circumstances point directly to a premeditated murder, the motive of which remains undiscovered. Well, so that, no, well, again, it doesn't. It doesn't. But again, I do love the guy's getting so frustrated with it that he goes on. So what do you do in these circumstances? I mean, you've got a murder. You've got people seen washing clothing in reens. Ooh, must have been washing the blood off. Apart from one chap says, no, it might have been some cleanly sailor tramp who found his innermost garment in
There's
some
not much to go on here.
hot weather. No,
there's not much to go on.
There's nothing to go on. So eventually they do what anybody would have to do at this point, and that is summon a medium. So they summoned to the fore.
Does that work well at all?
Here she is. A spirit medium sees a murdered man's ghost. My word. Well, I mean, really, obviously, I mean, this is what a bizarre. Spiritual detectives after the Fairwater murder. Extraordinary seance at the site of the crime. The victim interviewed through a medium. Revenge, revenge, revenge. Yes. People who have read Wilton Collins' great novel The Moonstone, or that other great but ephemeral work of fiction, Called Back by Hugh Conway, have possession of all the points of the extraordinary and sensational reenactment of the Fairwater tragedy, which is recorded in the Western Mail of Thursday. It seems that members of the Cardiff Psychological Society have been in good faith attempting privately to penetrate the veil of darkness surrounding the murder, which took place recently at St Fagan's Road, and which mere human agency has so far failed to pierce. Visits have been made by mediums to the scene of the tragedy without result, so far as stated. But a young lady, not yet 20, whose perfect sincerity cannot be doubted, claims to have been actually controlled by the spirit of the unfortunate David Thomas. Her exercise of the faculty of clairvoyance in private experiments had brought results so inexplicable that several from the ranks of the confirmed skeptics have been brought to the belief that there is something after all in spiritualism. During a séance in which she had been holding the communion with departed relatives of those around her, and actually giving facts from the closed book of life whilst in a state of trance that filled with wonder men who had come avowedly to test her, she was seized with a strange convulsion. Though through her lips came the words, in tone so like a man's, the bearers were astonished. I will have revenge. Who are you, friend? Inquired the interlocutor. David Thomas, I was shot. This was entirely unexpected. So, I don't know why it was entirely unexpected, as it's been over in the papers for an entire week. Right?
Yeah.
So, to understand the dialogue, the spiritualist belief must be explained, and at this moment the girl was controlled by the spirit of the Fairwater victim. Afterwards, she was taken out to Fairwater on successive occasions in the night, when, influenced by David Thomas, she went through the death scene, felt the shot as he fell at the spot where he was murdered, staggered along the road and fell moaning almost lifeless under the tree where his dead body was discovered. The convincing part of it was that it was known that she had never been to Fairwater before and knew nothing of the locality. The statements made before were repeated, and the result was that the phenomenon created such an impression on those who accompanied her, thought fit to mention the matter to the Western Mail. A couple of reporters then went with the girl and saw the whole scene enacted by on her road, and heard the names which the spirit of David Thomas mentioned.
There you go.
Well, obviously, she couldn't have just read the papers and worked it all out from the very first minute breakdown fantasy of what happened at the accident. That is clearly impossible, obviously. Oh. But I do love that little float at the end, is that she heard the names which the spirit mentioned, but they don't say what they are.
Oh, they didn't say.
Well,
Oh, well,
they
that's a bit of
don't
a
say.
tease, isn't
No.
it?
So David Thomas, poor man, who seems to have actually been pretty much forgotten in the bulk of this recording, apart from the fact that he's dead at the beginning and his wife's mentioned once. They get so wrapped up in the fun and entertainment of this piece that they forget all about him entirely. So
No.
it is fascinating because this is just what they do at the time.
Mm.
We've seen this time and time again, is that
Yeah.
there is no distinction between crime reporting and entertainment.
Oh, it is
And
entertainment, isn't it?
well,
It
the
is
speculation
entertainment.
in this is just beyond anything we've come in any other case, really, because most of what is being stated and developed, and the idea that this is an American bulldog pistol, and they go to a gunsmith who says, "No, it's not an American bulldog pistol. He wouldn't fire that type of cartridge. It's a Derringer pistol." There's no bloody pistol at all. There is no pistol. They do not know what did it. They don't. There's no even actual statement that the bullet casing they found actually was the bullet that went through him, because they never find the bullet. Mad case. Yeah, entertainment.
But they
Entertainment.
filled a lot of column inches with sensational stuff, which I think
Oh
you'll
yeah.
agree is the real.
Yes.
It's the real
Yeah.
reason for all
You
of
want to
this.
know what the motive for it is?
Poor Mr. Thomas.
what it
The
is.
journalist's motive is easier to decipher than the murderer's, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I don't think it was never solved, shall we say?
Oh, well, there we go. But murder, yeah, the Fairwater murder, and yeah. So St Fagan's Castle. He's not on this list, unfortunately. I
No.
did check what. Now we don't know the names of these people. It would have been
There is
interesting.
the photograph that occurs in one of the newspaper articles does look slightly similar to the gentleman on the far left, second row in with that little black moustache. He does look very similar to that gentleman there.
Well, who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah, fascinating. I wonder if he is in that picture.
It's possible. Now, this is St Fagan's Castle by G.F. Harris.
Oh, yeah, well-known Newport painter.
Well, Merthyr painter.
Merthyr painter. I think
Merthyr
they painted lots of pictures of Newport. Yeah.
Yeah. G.F. Harris, who moved to Australia, hence the Australian Harrises.
No, sorry, I've got my Harris. I've got my painters completely mixed up. Yes, I know the G.F. Harris. He painted a famous portrait of Viscount Godfrey.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Well, finally, Lord Windsor came to his majority. And of course, there were enormous celebrations. And everyone had a big party. It tends to happen when an aristocrat gets married or comes to their majority. So he takes over, and here he is. This is Robert. He is Lord Windsor, and he takes over the estate. And he stays at his Worcestershire seat, often in the winter and the autumn. And that's Hewell Grange, which is near Redditch and Bromsgrove, that area. And he comes to St Fagan's for romantic summers.
Oh.
In fact, he's quite a busy boy, really, it has to be said. These are some of the things he did. Okay, this isn't your lazy aristocrat, Goff, Lord Windsor. He was the Paymaster General under Lord Salisbury. He was the first Commissioner of Works under Balfour. He was Mayor of Cardiff. He was Lord Lieutenant of Glamorgan. He had the Legion of Honour from France. He had the Order of the Bath. He was Honorary Colonel of at least 3 regiments. He was President of the Cambrian Archaeological Society. He was the President of the Birmingham Civic Society. He was the chairman of the trustees of the Tate Gallery. He was president of the London Society. He was trustee for the Shakespeare Memorial Trust. He was the High Steward of Cambridge University. He was a bigwig with the British Red Cross. He was the first president of the Concrete Institute, later known as the Institute of Structural Engineers. He was the founder president of the South Wales Art Society and Sketch Club. And more importantly for you, Goff, for 9 years he was chairman of the National Trust. How about that?
God, well, good grief. Yes, he crammed a lot in, didn't he?
A very busy boy. Very busy boy was Robert Windsor-Clive, Lord Windsor. And he married very well. He married this lady. This is Alberta Victoria Paget, whose father was our ambassador in Italy. There's a lot of Italian influence. And whose mother was an intimate of Queen Victoria.
I knew the name Paget.
Paget, yeah. And her mother was great, really. Her mother, Lady Paget, would come up with things in conversation. Says, "Oh yes, I inadvertently had dinner at Balmoral." You inadvertently stumble and have dinner at Balmoral Castle.
Yeah. Yeah,
But this lady, but Alberta Victoria, got the name and it stuck as a kid, Gay, because she always looked miserable. It was an ironic. She never smiled, basically. So she was known as Gay Windsor. And she was a very artistic, just like her husband, Robert, Lord Windsor. She was a vegetarian as well. And she was part of that poetical set before the Bloomsbury group called the Souls.
the souls.
Souls. They all got very artistic and poetical, these aristocrats. They were also a little bit relaxed when it came to extramarital relationships. And a politician called George Wyndham fell in love with Gay. And in fact, a lot of it happened at St Fagans.
Oh.
Without any scandal reaching the public, they had a long-running affair until he died in 1913 in Gay's arms in Paris.
Oh, gosh.
No, it was said that he did like St Fagans, not just for allowing to continue his affair, basically because it was seen as a very Arthurian romance.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
St Fagans was Arthurian, said Gay. And George said, "Ah, yes, it is the enchanted land of Arthurian romance."
Isn't it funny how that's disappeared so much in the past century?
Hasn't it gone completely? Yeah. You just see on maps things like Arthur's Field, and in this case,
Arthur's Pool.
Arthur's Pool. But it was all there. Gay was an interesting character. It's true, she didn't really smile a lot, but she was very patient, and she would just sort of float into rooms. Everything she did was very slow and measured. And she would listen to you, and she wouldn't dominate conversation. And she was an artist, and she was extremely good Lady Windsor, actually, because she was quite the hostess. She did say it's lovely and Arthurian, but the good thing about St Fagans is it's so small we can't have massive house parties here. St Fagans was a retreat. It was the summer retreat where they could get away from it all. I mean, that was the idea, really.
Yeah.
And this is a great photograph, this. This is taken, I think this is in 1905. And this is the old St Fagans railway station.
Oh,
so you've got the castle, you've got the village. Yeah. It went the way of many little railway stations. It closed in 1962, did St Fagans railway station. But I guess this is where their agents, fish would arrive from Grimsby by special arrangement. Which is nice. In 1905, the Earldom of Plymouth was brought back for Robert and Gay.
Oh, right, yeah.
He became the first Earl of Plymouth of, I think, the third creation.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they are the Earl and Countess of Plymouth. And they did a lot on the gardens. Gay was involved with the gardens, and very Italian at influence that she would have got, from spending so much time in Italy. Here's a little... little caricature, and it's called Good Works of Robert. But he did do an awful lot of good works. Indeed, some of the things that he did, and we've mentioned his positions and all the things that he had, but he saved Crystal Palace for the nation.
Oh.
The nation wanted to buy the Crystal Palace when the firm that ran it went bust. Unfortunately, he tried to fundraise and they were £35,000 short, so he paid it himself.
Oh, good Lord. Astonishing.
He's also responsible, essentially, for the Mall and the Victoria Memorial.
Oh, right.
In London.
Gosh.
Yeah. He was in charge. He was the Commissioner of Works for that. And he had to sign off on the Victoria Memorial. So he does have quite a legacy, Lord Windsor, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Earl of Plymouth, Lord Plymouth, as he was at that time. There's a great painting here of him by Sir John Lavery. And Lavery did another painting of them at St Fagans. You can see them on the terrace at St Fagans. So there he is, and there's Gay, probably being quiet and mysterious and dreamy. There's Lady Paget, probably about to say something outrageous about Queen Victoria again. And you've got the children. I think Archer would have been one of those. And it just does sum up why they use St Fagans as this Arthurian romantic place, which is very different from their seat.
Yeah.
their seat in Bromsgrove, Hewell Grange, which was a pretty impressive 18th century. Think Clither Park. It
Oh
was
yeah.
bigger than that, but it was interesting. So unfortunately, they then did something that they later regretted. They decided to rebuild Hewell Grange.
Oh
Now, Gay did say in later years, had they known what would happen in the world, they wouldn't have spent all that money rebuilding an already impressive stately home in Worcestershire. And
yeah.
they might have gone slightly over the top.
Right.
Because what they built near Worcestershire, just on the cusp of the world changing forever, it finished in 1890, so the 20th century was on the way. They built that.
Oh.
It is
Yeah.
enormous.
Oh yeah.
Hewell Grange.
Yeah.
It's supposed to look Elizabethan, but it
Yeah.
is vast.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the
Oh my
whole.
God. The baronial, yeah.
Very baronial. They have spent an absolute fortune on this place. And did they build on top of the old Grange? Now, this is interesting because one of our friends of this channel, one of our subscribers, Mac, put a comment on our Glanusk Park, where Glanusk Park, Lord Glanusk, basically, or Lady Glanusk, blew it up, if you remember, in
Yeah.
that South Wales tradition.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah.
Like it happened to Llanwern, it
I've
happened to
had enough of it
Glanusk.
now. Blow it up. Yeah.
And Mac said something, which at the time, he said, well, why didn't they just leave it and allow it to become a ruin?
Hmm.
Well, Lord Windsor agreed with that. He built this new vast Grange
Yeah.
on a different spot. So the old Grange,
What?
he just left to become a ruin.
Oh, God's sake.
Isn't it extraordinary?
Sort of, yeah, you see, it's like becomes a huge folly.
Yeah.
Like a colossal folly.
And sometimes they put a tent, a marquee inside it and have dinners there. And then you got this vast sort of faux Elizabethan place.
Yeah.
And this is how it looks today. It's still there.
Yeah.
And they're trying to restore it.
Yeah.
What eventually happened to Hewell Grange, because it was so enormous, they sold it in the end after World War II for £35,000 to the government.
Yeah.
And it became a young offenders institution in the 20th century. They thought that the palatial surroundings was good for them.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. And then it became a sort of an open prison.
Oh, good Lord.
HMP Hewell, as it became. And it's still there, and I think it's now been bought by someone recently, and it might end up as a hotel or something like that. But it was this enormous... I guess it became something of a white elephant for them.
Yeah.
At the end. World War I appeared, of course, and that caused problems, as it did to every single family, really, in the land. Lord Windsor had the problem there. His sons go off to war. And Archer, and I know this because the gardener's letters I read, the gardener at St Fagans was the son, I believe, of Lord Bute's gardener at Cardiff Castle, Uncle Pettigrew.
Oh, gosh.
And he said that Archer, Windsor-Clive, who you see here, hated having his photo taken and just played up terribly this day.
Oh, yeah.
So he's even got this little grin on his face because he's been a nightmare for the cameraman, for the photographer. And he's still got it. Sadly, Archer died, very early in the war, August 1914, after the retreat from Mons. He died trying to hold the line.
Oh, dear.
He was in the Coldstream Guards.
Horrible.
The next month, his father, Lord Plymouth, of course, as he now is, had to go on a recruitment drive with David Lloyd George.
Oh,
a month later, you've just lost your son. And Lloyd George says, yes, like many, he has made the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh, God.
So what happened to St Fagan's Castle during the Great War? Well, they actually built a banqueting hall. That was the other thing they built out in the grounds. And that banqueting hall became a hospital, as you can see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting.
In the First World War.
Yeah.
The banqueting hall actually isn't there now. It burnt down in the 1950s.
Oh.
And members of the family joined in, of course, with a lot of aristocratic daughters became nurses, of course, and things like that. And there they are. It's a great spot, isn't it, to recover?
Yeah, okay.
Fagans Castle, those wonderful gardens and those pools and everything like that. As for inside the house, another few things aren't open to the public these days. You've got Lady Plymouth's bedroom.
Oh.
Looks very good. Those beds are the original ones. Isn't that incredible?
Oh, yeah. Good Lord. Yeah.
17th century. And the same bed appears in a photograph. Now, we all, we read in bed, but it is the age of the Kindle and the bedside lamp. But it wasn't the age of the bedside lamp back then. So what do you do if you are Lady Plymouth? You put a light bulb there. It's the same picture, but you got a light bulb so that Lady Plymouth can. Great
Yeah,
artist. I mean, she would have painted boards that she would do
yeah,
herself. I mean, she was still very much one of the souls, you could say, from those
yeah.
early years. So all very pleasant. The Earl of Plymouth died in 1923. He'd just come back from a levee from the king, taken off his uniform, and he had a hemorrhage, and that was it, gone at
Oh,
65.
cool.
So Gay continued, and that meant, in fact, Gay basically helped run the estate until Ivor was ready. There's their son, Ivor, who became,
Yeah,
well, the second Earl of Plymouth, really, of the third creation.
yeah,
He was in charge of the National Museum of Wales. So again, it was very much the arts with the Plymouths, with the
yeah.
Windsor-Clive family. And he did a pretty good job. He married, he sold some of the Worcestershire estates because of death duties. This is the dark age of death duties we're in now, of course. 20s and 30s. So he lived more at St Fagans than they had before. And he married a lady, and her name is important, right? I don't know if any of our viewers can work out why she was called this. Lady Irene Corona Charteris. She was born in 1902. If anyone out there, I will tell you, do you know why she might have such a fitting name in 1902 of Lady Irene Corona? No. Well, Irene
No clue.
means peace.
Oh,
So 1902 was the end of the Boer War. There
yeah,
was a sprouting of Irenes in 1918 and 1945, but it isn't
yeah,
that popular anymore because it means peace.
yeah. Oh gosh.
And Corona was for the coronation of Edward VII that year.
Oh, right. Well.
Woodhouse said there's some
Yeah.
raw work done at the font. Irene Corona. But she always went by her nickname, which was Bibbs.
Bib. Bibs.
Bibbs. There they all are. There's Bibbs.
Yeah.
And there is Ivor.
Yeah.
And I love this because we're all going to go in order of size at St Fagan's Castle, aren't we, children and wife? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We're all going to look at the camera, aren't we?
Yeah.
Aren't we, Gillian? Ruining the shot. There's Bibbs, you can see there, the mother.
Yeah.
Gillian, sadly, died in a car crash at the age of 39 in 1962.
Oh gosh.
Kids, the poor thing.
Mm.
But there they all are. And it was coming towards the end, really, of their time at St Fagan's Castle. Bibbs was quite fun because she, again, was also an extremely good sort of Lady Plymouth. And when her husband dropped dead suddenly during World War II, he was only in his 50s, she had to run the estate until her son could get back from war himself, so they didn't know whether he would survive.
Oh.
Coldstream Guards, very much the regiment for this family. So Bibbs held Sir Edward Marsh, who was a friend of Evan Tredegar and was also a secretary to Winston Churchill, stayed there. And he said Bibbs is just magnificent.
Yeah.
But she was always being pestered by the locals and she never said no. So what she would do is she'd say, "Oh, Eddie, we just have to go to the local church hall and we just have to do something, show our face for 10 minutes. 4 hours later, they're still there. So she was, it has to be said, extremely good. She described herself as, "I'm only the doubtful adornment of a semi-public man." But no, she was extraordinarily a lot more than that. So when he died, what would happen? Well, this is the third Earl of Plymouth, who went by the name. His name was Other.
Other.
Other was the name going right back with the Windsors and the Windsor-Clive. I think it's Saxon. So although they called them Otti in the family, I think it was probably Uda is the Saxon name going all the way back. So what he did was he was the one who basically gave St Fagan's Castle and 18 acres of land after the Second World War for this museum.
Oh, right.
Sir Cyril Fox, the archaeologist, was involved, and the poet Yorath Pete, who got the idea after seeing similar open-air museums in Scandinavia.
Oh, right. Oh, interesting.
So ultimately, it was a great gift, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Windsor-Clives, the Earls of Plymouth, who are still going. They're still at Oakley Park in Shropshire, so they're still going. But he handed it over. So as you said, Goff, oh, by the way, he died in 2018.
Oh, right.
So that's how close the history actually touches us with this one.
Yeah.
2018. And it became as Goff described it, with I think it's 40 buildings they've got there now. There's
Yeah,
been,
enormous. It just keeps growing every so often. Something else gets added in, and the range of things they've increased as well is colossal there. Oh yeah, if you ever get a chance, as a local or not as a local, to go and see it, I think that's one of the most recent ones. That's
it is, yeah.
Vulcan Pub, which used to be in the middle of Cardiff. I
Yeah.
remember it being actually in the middle of Cardiff.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I do remember it in location. It was there when I was at college. I was never in area near the college, but I remember going past it on a bus. Past on the buses, the wonderful tiled fronts. That's again. Sometimes we keep the interesting buildings, or the big buildings, and the grand buildings, and the little buildings like this go. And this is why St Fagans is so nice. It's the little buildings really, and it's the ordinary people's places and buildings, and the working men's halls and the prefabs and those type of things. So it's a very, very interesting space to see.
Yeah, and it's important to say, I mean, we're not talking about facades. These are rebuilt brick by brick, and they hold events here. They hold events in the Vulcan Hotel. It's set out as it looked in 1915, so you can sort of have events. But it is in the actual place.
It is a functioning pub.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you can go back into it. Only it's gone back in time to when it was first built. Yeah. Oh, that tiling is it? So there were some beautifully tiled built pubs in Pilgwentley, in Newport and Pill, and they're gone. Just flattened, and it's shocking, really, that these interiors and things. The Waterloo Hotel, particularly.
Oh, that's extraordinary bar, isn't it?
Extraordinary bar, and I live in horror of anything happening to that.
Yeah. Well, I hope that also when you're at St Fagans, you pop in to have a little look at the castle itself. I hope we've given you a tiny little taste of an awful lot of history we had to skip through. A tiny little taste of the castle as a building. We got a Herbert in, didn't we? We got a. Always nice to have the Herbert.
We're happy.
Yeah. So we're finished here. Goff, have you got anything you want to plug? He says, setting up.
Oh, I said, do it discreetly, Busby.
Oh, sorry. Goff,
honestly.
You got anything you'd like to plug?
I don't know whether many of our avid subscribers know, but at one stage in my life, I was a broadcast poet and a functioning. I wrote lots of comic verse for BBC Radio Wales. Well, I've been having a little bit of an amusement of myself of creating, using AI to make these into some songs and musical items. So I have a little channel called Terribly Nice. Goff Morgan's Terribly Nice channel, and we'll put a link up for you. And if you'd like to come and amuse yourself with some of my numbers and help give me a couple of clicks, I would very much appreciate it. And we'll put a link up on the site somewhere, and you can come and see me in my former role before I was retired as a poet in about 2015.
Well, you know what's going to happen now? He's going to go solo, isn't he? He's going to get great fame. He's going to leave us behind. So if you would like to replace Goff and talk to me about historical things here on the Little Knowledge Podcast, put your application in now at littleknowledgepodcast@gmail.com. Always happens when fame goes to these people's heads. No, in all honesty, and you are, of course, historic in itself. You're not quite listed yet, Goff, but it's only a matter of time because you were the only Newport town poet in existence
ever. Yeah,
you were the first and only. Yeah, ever. Yeah,
ever. One stage I was the only official town poet in Wales for about 3 years. End of the 90s. Came completely by accident. Wasn't on my to-do list. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved that time and doing that. And then of course from then I went onto radio, and I was onto radio till about 2015. So, and then the bubble popped. Eventually, it always does. Yeah, but I had a damn good run for me money out of it, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And yeah, and the Roy Noble program particularly used to crop up. So that was great fun.
There we go. So do give Goff a click and support him and follow him there. Thank you all for listening and watching, and thank you, Goff. Okay. And we will be back soon. Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.